The turkey was still warm when Dad looked across the table and said it. "You're a burden, Michael. You've been a burden since you came back from that damn war. Get out of my house." I set down my fork. The dining room went quiet except for the furnace cycling on. Mom stared at her plate like she was counting the peas. My brother Tom shifted in his chair, not meeting my eyes. The kids, my nephews, Jake and Michael, kept eating like nothing happened. 8 and 10 years old. They'd learned not to react when Grandpa got like this. "Okay," I said. That was it. One word. I folded my napkin, placed it beside my plate, and pushed back from the table. The chair legs scraped against the hardwood floor Dad had installed himself 20 years ago, before the arthritis got bad, before Mom started working double shifts to pay for his medication, before I enlisted to help with the bills. I walked to the guest room where I'd been staying since my medical discharge 6 months ago, packed my duffel in under 10 minutes. Same routine I'd done 100 times in the Army. Roll the clothes tight. Toiletries in the side pocket. Important documents in the waterproof sleeve. The house was silent when I carried my bag downstairs. No one came to say goodbye. No one asked where I was going. I loaded the duffel into my Honda Civic, the same car I'd driven to the recruiting station 12 years ago, and backed out of the driveway. I drove to the Motel 6 on Route 9 and checked in for the night. The clerk was maybe 19, had gauges in his ears, and looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. "How many nights?" he asked. "Just one for now," I said. "Room 127, ground floor, facing the parking lot." I set my bag on the bed and looked around. Beige walls, brown carpet, painting of a lighthouse bolted to the wall. It smelled like disinfectant and old cigarettes. I sat on the bed and called my old squad leader, Martinez, who was living in Denver now, working construction and going to college on the GI Bill. "Merry Christmas, Sergeant," he said when he picked up. "Martinez, need a favor." "What's up?" "Can you recommend a good lawyer? Family law stuff." "Jesus, Mike, what happened?" "I'll fill you in later. Just need someone who knows estates and property law." He gave me 3 names: Jennifer Walsh in Springfield, Marcus Chen in Hartford, Rebecca Torres in New Haven. I wrote them down on the motel notepad, the kind with the torn edges and the pen that barely works. "You okay?" Martinez asked. "I'm fine." "You don't sound fine." "I'm handling it." "Mike, you know you can talk to me, right? After everything we've been through?" I looked out the window at the parking lot. A family was loading suitcases into a minivan. Kids running around in their pajamas. Parents trying to corral them. "I know," I said. "I'll call you tomorrow." I hung up and sat in the quiet. Outside, someone was playing music in their car. Inside, the heater clicked on and off. Down the hall, a door slammed and someone laughed. I thought about the last time I'd spent Christmas in a hotel room. Bagram Air Base, Afghanistan, 2021. Our unit had drawn holiday duty. We'd made the best of it. Someone had smuggled in a tiny Christmas tree, and the mess hall served turkey with all the fixings. Martinez had gotten everyone to sign a card for his kid back home. I'd called Dad from the communications tent, and he'd sounded proud when he told me about the care package he'd sent. "Got some of that beef jerky you like," he'd said, and I threw in my old hunting knife, the one Grandpa gave me. That knife was still in my footlocker. I'd carried it through 2 deployments, never used it for anything but opening MREs and cutting paracord, but it felt important to have it. A connection to home. A reminder that someone was thinking about me. The next morning I called Jennifer Walsh. She had an office in Springfield, about an hour's drive from the motel. She agreed to meet me on the 27th of December. "What kind of family law issue are we talking about?" she asked. "I need to understand some things about property and finances. My father's been managing some of my affairs while I was deployed and hospitalized." "Are you having trouble accessing your own money?" "Something like that." "Okay, bring whatever documentation you have. Bank statements, power of attorney forms, anything that shows the financial relationship." I hung up and realized I didn't have any of that paperwork. It was all at Dad's house, in the desk in his study. the same desk where he'd helped me fill out my enlistment forms when I was 22. I'd been living at Dad's house since August, recovering from the IED that took my hearing in my left ear and messed up my shoulder. The blast had happened outside Kandahar, during what was supposed to be a routine convoy escort. I'd been riding shotgun in the lead vehicle when the road erupted beneath us. I woke up 3 days later in a field hospital in Germany. Couldn't hear anything on my left side. Couldn't lift my right arm above my head. The doctor said I was lucky the 2 soldiers in the back seat hadn't made it. The Army processed me out with a 40% disability rating and a settlement check I hadn't looked at yet. Dad said I could stay at the house as long as I needed. Said it was the least he could do after everything I'd sacrificed for my country. That lasted about 3 weeks. The complaint started small. I slept too late. At 9 a.m. was apparently unacceptable for someone who'd been getting up at 0500 for 12 years. I left dishes in the sink, never mind that I'd been doing my own dishes since I was 8 years old. I watched too much TV, the news mostly, trying to keep up with what was happening in Afghanistan after we pulled out. You need to start thinking about your future, Dad said one morning in September. You can't just sit around here feeling sorry for yourself. I'm not feeling sorry for myself, I said. I'm following the doctor's orders. Physical therapy twice a week. Counseling once a week. I'm doing what I need to do. You should be looking for work. I'm not cleared for work yet. There's always something you can do, even with your limitations. My limitations, that's what he called them. Never mind that I'd led a squad through 2 combat deployments. Never mind that I'd been recommended for promotion to staff sergeant before the blast. Never mind that I'd been awarded the Combat Action Badge and the Purple Heart. I was limited. By October, he was charging me rent. $500 a month for the guest room I'd slept in as a kid when Mom and Dad fought, and I'd hide upstairs with my books and my model airplanes. The room still had the same twin bed, the same desk, the same bulletin board covered with ribbons from high school track meets. I paid the rent without arguing because I wasn't ready to live alone yet. The nightmares were still bad, not every night, but often enough that I didn't want to risk waking up screaming in some apartment where the neighbors might call the police. The house felt safer with other people around, even if those people were getting increasingly hostile. It's not personal, Mom said when I asked her about it. Your father's just worried about money. His arthritis is getting worse, and he might have to stop working soon. Dad had been a carpenter for 30 years, built half the custom cabinets in town, but his hands were getting stiff, and he'd been talking about retirement for a while. I thought he'd paid off the house, I said. Well, there's still some left on the mortgage, and the medical bills from when he had that heart scare last year. I didn't remember any heart scare, but I'd been deployed, and communication wasn't always reliable. It was possible they'd decided not to worry me with family medical issues while I was dealing with my own problems. In November, Dad raised the rent to $800. Said utilities were going up. Said the property taxes had increased. Said everything was more expensive than it used to be. By December, he wanted $1,200. For a room in a house he'd supposedly almost paid off. I should have left then. Should have found an apartment, figured out how to manage on my own. But Christmas was coming, and Mom kept calling, asking if I'd be there for dinner. She'd been planning this meal for weeks. Tom was bringing his boys down from Boston. It would be like old times. I thought about the old times while I sat in that motel room, listening to the ice machine cycle down the hall. Christmas 2018, before my second deployment. Dad had been so proud when I got my sergeant stripes, showed everyone at dinner the photo of me in dress blues, called me his soldier boy, and told stories about how I'd always been tougher than the other kids. Remember when he broke his arm falling off his bike? He'd said. Didn't cry once, just picked himself up and walked home. I remembered that day. I was 12. The bone was sticking out of my forearm, and I'd been too scared to cry. But Dad had made it sound like courage. Christmas 2019, I was at Fort Campbell, getting ready for Afghanistan. Dad sent a care package with homemade cookies and a photo of the family dog. Wrote a letter saying he was proud of me for serving our country. Said he bragged about me to everyone at the hardware store. Christmas 2020, I was in Afghanistan. Dad's care package that year had beef jerky, instant coffee, and the hunting knife. His letter was longer, full of news about people I'd gone to high school with, who was getting married, who was having babies, who was still working at the same dead-end jobs they'd had when I left. Christmas 2021, I was still deployed. Got extended because of the withdrawal. Dad's letter that year was shorter, but he still signed it, "Love, Dad," and said he was counting the days until I came home. Christmas 2022, I was in Germany, recovering from the blast. Dad called the hospital on Christmas Day. The connection was bad, and I could barely hear him through the static. But he said he couldn't wait for me to come home. Said he was going to take care of me. Christmas 2023, I was home, sitting in a motel room, wondering what had changed. The lawyer's office was in a strip mall between a tax preparation service and a Chinese restaurant. Jennifer Walsh was maybe 40, wore a gray pantsuit, and had the kind of firm handshake that meant she'd dealt with military clients before. "Tell me what happened," she said. I gave her the facts, the living situation, the rent increases, the Christmas dinner incident. She took notes on a yellow legal pad, asked clarifying questions, didn't interrupt. "Before we go further," she said when I finished, "I need to understand something. Are you looking for a place to stay, or are you looking to address a larger issue?" "What do you mean?" "Your father owns the house outright, correct? He can set whatever terms he wants for you living there. He can ask you to leave. That's his right, as the property owner." "I understand that. So what is it you want my help with?" I pulled out the folder I'd been carrying. "I want to understand some things about the house, about how it got paid off, about some financial decisions that were made while I was deployed and hospitalized." She opened the folder. Inside were printouts I'd made at the library that morning, property records from the county assessor's office, VA benefit statements I'd requested online, bank records I'd managed to access through the online portal. "Where did you get these?" "Most of it's public record. The VA statements are mine. I have a right to see them. The bank records are from accounts that have my name on them." She studied the papers for 15 minutes. Her expression changed as she read. "Mr. Connor, are you aware that your father used your VA benefits to pay off the mortgage on his house?" I suspected it, but I wasn't sure. "He was designated as your representative payee while you were hospitalized in Germany. The VA sends benefits to the representative when the service member is incapacitated. It's standard procedure." "Right. Except your benefits were supposed to go into a separate trust account until you were able to manage them yourself. Instead, they went directly to your father's personal checking account, and he used them to make the final mortgage payments on his house." I sat back in the chair. "How much?" $47,000. Your VA disability back pay, plus your accumulated combat pay savings, plus the settlement from your injury claim." "Jesus." "There's more. He also used your power of attorney to access your personal savings account, the one you'd been contributing to since you enlisted. That had about $30,000 in it. $28,000, according to these statements, all withdrawn in 3 separate transactions while you were in the hospital." I stared at the papers, numbers and dates that told the story of my father's betrayal in black and white. So he used my money to pay off his house, then charged me rent to live in it. That's what it looks like. And at Christmas dinner, he called me a burden. "Mr. Connor, what your father did constitutes financial abuse of a disabled veteran. It's a federal crime. We're talking about potential charges under the Elder Abuse Prevention and Prosecution Act, mail fraud, wire fraud, and theft of government benefits." "What are my options?" "We can file a complaint with the VA's Office of Inspector General. We can contact the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. We can file a civil lawsuit for recovery of the funds, or we can do all 3. I drove back to the motel and sat in the parking lot for an hour. Cars pulled in and out, families with kids heading to some post-Christmas destination, traveling salesmen with their sample cases and tired expressions, people with somewhere to go and someone waiting for them. I thought about calling Martinez, but I wasn't ready to talk yet, wasn't ready to say out loud what I'd discovered. Instead, I went to my room and spread the papers out on the small table by the window, The mortgage record showed that Dad had owed about $50,000 when I deployed for the second time. The payments had been 3 months behind. The bank was starting foreclosure proceedings. Then, suddenly, the account was current. Large payments started coming in, payments that matched exactly with my VA benefit deposits. I found the power of attorney form I'd signed before my deployment. Standard military procedure: if something happened to me, Dad would be able to handle my affairs, pay my bills, access my accounts, make decisions about my care. I'd trusted him. He was my father. That night, I called Martinez. "How'd it go with the lawyer?" he asked. "She says Dad stole about $75,000 from me while I was in the hospital." "Son of a bitch." "Yeah. What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet." "Mike, you know what I'm going to say, right?" "What?" "You've been taking care of everyone else your whole life. Your mom when your parents were having problems. Your soldiers when we were deployed. Your dad when he was having money trouble before you enlisted. Maybe it's time to take care of yourself." "I know." "Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it sounds like you're still trying to protect him." I hung up and sat in the dark. Outside, the parking lot was quiet except for the occasional car passing on Route 9. I thought about what Martinez had said, about taking care of everyone else. He was right. I'd been doing it since I was a kid. When Mom and Dad fought, I was the one who cleaned up the broken dishes. When money was tight, I was the one who got a job at 16 to help with groceries. When Dad's business was slow, I was the one who enlisted to take the financial pressure off the family. I'd been taking care of everyone else for so long, I'd forgotten how to take care of myself. The next morning, I called Jennifer Walsh. "I want to file complaints," I said. "All of them. VA, FBI, civil lawsuit, everything." "Are you sure? Once we start this process, it's going to get complicated. Your father could face serious criminal charges." "I'm sure." "Okay. I'll need you to sign some paperwork, and we'll need to gather more evidence. Bank records, medical records, testimony from people who knew about the financial situation." "I have someone who can help with that." "Who?" "My mother." I called Mom that afternoon. She answered on the second ring. "Michael, honey, where are you? Your father's been worried sick." "I'm fine, Mom, but I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." "What is it?" "Did you know Dad was using my VA benefits to pay off the house?" Silence on the other end, long enough that I thought the call had dropped. "Mom?" "Oh, Michael." Her voice was small, tired. "Did you know?" "He said it was temporary. He said he'd pay it back when his business picked up." "When did he tell you this?" "Last spring, when the mortgage company called about the final payment being due." "And you didn't think to tell me?" "I wanted to, but he said it would upset you. He said you were still recovering and didn't need the stress." "Mom, that money was supposed to be for my future, for when I got out of the hospital and needed to start over." "I know, honey, I know. There's more. He also took the money from my savings account. All of it." "What?" $28,000. Money I'd been saving since I enlisted. "Michael, I didn't know about that. I swear I didn't know. Will you help me?" "Help you how?" "I'm filing complaints against Dad. Criminal complaints. I need someone who can verify what happened with the house payments." Another long silence. "He's going to be so angry," she said finally. "He stole from me, Mom. While I was lying in a hospital bed overseas, he was stealing my money." "I know. And then he charged me rent to live in the house my money paid for." "I know. Will you help me?" "Yes." The investigation took months. The VA's Office of Inspector General moved fast. They don't like it when people abuse disabled veterans. The FBI took longer, but they were thorough. Financial crimes aren't as exciting as bank robberies or kidnappings, but they're still federal crimes. Dad hired his own lawyer, Marcus Webb, a guy who'd been practicing in town for 30 years and had a reputation for defending people who couldn't afford to pay big retainer fees. Webb tried to argue that Dad had been managing my finances as a favor, that he'd had every right to use the money as he saw fit, that I was ungrateful and vindictive. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Patricia Henley, didn't buy it. "Your Honor," she said during the preliminary hearing, "the defendant didn't just borrow money from his son. He systematically looted his accounts while he was incapacitated and unable to protect himself. This is exactly the kind of predatory behavior the Elder Abuse Prevention and Prosecution Act was designed to address. Mr. Connor is hardly elderly, Webb objected. No, but he's a disabled veteran who was exploited by someone in a position of trust. The law applies. The judge, a Korean War veteran named Harrison Mills, looked like he'd heard enough. Mr. Webb, does your client dispute that he used Mr. Connor's VA benefits to pay off his mortgage? No, Your Honor. But does he dispute that he withdrew money from his personal savings account? No, Your Honor. But the circumstances are that he stole from a disabled veteran while he was hospitalized overseas. I've heard enough. The defendant is bound over for trial. Dad looked smaller in the courtroom than he had at the Christmas dinner table. Older. His arthritis was getting worse, and he moved carefully when he stood up. For a moment, I felt sorry for him. Then I remembered the look on his face when he'd called me a burden. The trial lasted 3 days. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, Virginia statements, medical records showing I'd been incapacitated when the money was taken. Mom testified reluctantly, but honestly. Even Tom showed up, though he wouldn't look at me. The jury deliberated for 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. Dad got 18 months in federal prison, suspended to 6 months with supervised release, if he paid full restitution plus interest and penalties. The judge also ordered him to attend financial counseling and perform community service. Mr. Connor, Judge Mills said during sentencing, your son served this country honorably and came home wounded. Instead of supporting his recovery, you exploited his vulnerability for your own financial gain. That's not just criminal, it's morally reprehensible. Dad didn't say anything, just stood there with his hands folded, looking at the floor. The house had to be sold to cover what he owed me. After legal fees and penalties, I got back about $90,000. Not everything, but enough to start over. Mom moved into a senior living community across town. Said she couldn't afford to keep a house anyway, and it was time for a fresh start. She seemed relieved, actually, like she'd been carrying a weight she could finally put down. Tom stopped talking to me entirely. Sent a text saying I'd destroyed the family over money, that I was selfish and vindictive, that Dad was an old man who'd made a mistake. I texted back. He didn't make a mistake. He made a choice. Tom never responded. I used the settlement money to buy a small cabin outside town. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, wood stove, and 10 acres of pine woods. The place had been empty for 2 years, and it needed work. But it was mine. No one could charge me rent or tell me I was a burden. The cabin sits at the end of a dirt road, far enough from town that I can't hear traffic, but close enough that I can get groceries and go to my VA appointments. There's a small creek that runs through the property, and deer come to drink in the evenings. I spent the first month just fixing the basics. Plumbing, electrical, weatherproofing. Work that reminded me of helping Dad with projects when I was a kid, before everything got complicated. I still go to the VA for therapy, still wake up some nights when the dreams get bad, but I sleep better now than I have in years. Something about owning my own space, having my own sanctuary, makes the nightmares less frequent. 6 months after I moved into the cabin, I got a letter from the VA. They were offering me a job as a veterans benefits counselor. The pay wasn't great, but it came with federal health insurance and a pension. More importantly, it was a chance to help other veterans navigate the system that had been so confusing for me. I took the job. Most days, I sit in a gray cubicle in a federal building, reviewing benefit applications and answering phone calls from confused veterans who don't understand why their payments stopped or why their claims got denied. It's not glamorous work, but it's important. Every few weeks I get a case that reminds me why I'm there. Last month, a young Marine named Jackson came to see me. 24 years old, missing his left leg below the knee from an IED in Syria. His girlfriend had been managing his benefits while he was in rehabilitation. When he got out, he found out she'd spent everything on a new car and a vacation to Mexico. I don't know what to do, he told me. She says I gave her permission when I signed those papers in the hospital. What kind of papers? Power of attorney stuff. The social worker said I needed to designate someone to handle my affairs while I was getting treatment. Did you read them before you signed? I was on a lot of pain medication. I don't remember much from those first few weeks. I pulled out a legal pad and started writing down the details. Same pattern as my case. Same exploitation of trust. Same abuse of a vulnerable service member. Here's what we're going to do, I told him. First, we're going to request copies of all the documents you signed. Then we're going to get your benefit payment records from the VA. Then we're going to see exactly where your money went. It took 4 months, but we got Jackson's money back. The girlfriend faced federal charges for benefit fraud. Jackson used the settlement to buy a small house and start college on the GI Bill. He graduated last spring with a degree in computer science, made the dean's list, sent me a photo of himself in his cap and gown, standing next to his prosthetic leg which he decorated with Marine Corps stickers. On the back of the photo he wrote, "Thank you for teaching me that asking for help isn't weakness, it's strategy." I keep that photo on my desk at work, next to a small American flag Martinez sent me when I got the job, and a picture of my cabin in the snow. Some mornings, when I'm driving to work, I pass the old house where I grew up. A young couple lives there. Noe's a teacher. She's a nurse. They have twin girls who are maybe 6 years old. They put up a swing set in the backyard and planted a vegetable garden where Dad used to park his work truck. The house looks good, better than it did when we lived there. The new owners painted the trim and fixed the front porch steps that had been sagging for years. They take care of the place. I don't feel angry when I see it. Dad made his choices. I made mine. The difference is, I can sleep at night. Last week, I got a call from Martinez. He'd finished his engineering degree and gotten a job with the Colorado Department of Transportation. He was getting married in June to a woman he'd met in one of his classes. "You should come out for the wedding," he said. "I don't know. It's a long way. Mike, you've been hiding in those woods for 2 years. It's time to start living again." I am living. You're surviving. That's not the same thing. Maybe he was right. Maybe I had been hiding. But sometimes hiding is what you need to do while you figure out who you are without all the people who are supposed to love you. This morning, I woke up early and sat on my porch with coffee, watching the sun come up through the pine trees. It was quiet except for the creek running and a few birds starting their morning songs. I thought about Christmas dinner 3 years ago, Dad calling me a burden, me folding my napkin and walking away. I should have done it years earlier. Should have recognized that the person who was supposed to protect me was the one I needed protection from. But I'd been trained to follow orders, to respect authority, to put the mission first. It took me 34 years to figure out that sometimes the mission is taking care of yourself. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stand up and walk away. Sometimes the best revenge is building a life so good that the people who hurt you become irrelevant. I finished my coffee and went inside to get ready for work. Today I'm meeting with a group of male veterans who are having trouble accessing their benefits. Some of them are dealing with family members who are trying to control their finances. Some of them are afraid to speak up because they don't want to cause problems. I'm going to tell them what I learned, that asking for help isn't weakness, that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, that you can't take care of anyone else until you take care of yourself. I'm not a burden anymore. I'm a resource, and I'm exactly where I need to be.